In Dallas for the NAPPSA conference. Yeah.
Affairs of Texas Southern University. Please give me. And also, I want to add that Dr. Sonio here is a member of the board of NAPPSA and the current vice president of NAPPSA. And my list too, it may not be in your program, it's just an error. I want to apologize. I've already apologized to him. It was an error when we missed his name. Is Dr. Ogumbono, Festus Ogumbono. He was the former, he was the former, I think it was senior vice chancellor, University of Obafemi Awolowo University, and also so I will, as soon as we have other panelists, as soon as they come in, I'm introducing them and get them here. So we'll,
he said one is here.
Okay, so who? Yeah. Registrar of Pharmacy Council of Nigeria. Please do come. So I will introduce the other people as they come in. We'll just go ahead and start. Like I mentioned before, this is going to be very informal. What are the challenges and opportunities? Dr. Cyril Osifo is here. Please come to the So while they're making arrangements to get the begin associated with pharmacy practice for he's seen it all from the beginning until now. So, Mr. Ifa, how has pharmacy practice evolved over the past 2 decades in Nigeria? What are the challenges and opportunities? You knew what it was before and how it has evolved over the years.
Yeah, thank you very much. If I don't want to start now, then I'll tell you that I'm waiting for my own laptop to arrive. Yes, but we must start something because we all have been involved and we know what has been happening when we talk of about 20 years ago up to today. Those who have been, who have known the situation in Nigeria would agree with me that pharmacy practice has experienced remarkable improvement generally compared with what was happening in the last 2 decades. First, we know that pharmacy practice has been the traditional. That means concentration in the area of dispensing primarily. But we know that things have changed in our country today remarkably, and I'm proud to say that. For though I am not actively involved in community practice or hospital practice, but I am familiar with what is happening. Today, there are some pharmacists that are now using computers in their services to make records, which was not so many years ago. So we are using the information technology, which is being applied in some community pharmacies and less in hospital pharmacies today. Now, we are providing some extended services there are some pharmacies that offer some areas in tests, clinical tests. They offer blood sugar level tests. They offer pregnancy tests. And in their pharmacies, they have facilities for checking weight and even advising patients on appropriate weight, checking their BMI. We know that some of them are now relating with the medical doctors because you have to get prescriptions from them. And most of the time, community pharmacies never had prescriptions. And this is one problem that we have experienced in Nigeria, where prescriptions are not generated. And we keep on blaming ourselves, whether it is doctor's fault or the fault of the pharmacist. I believe there's improvement now because some pharmacies are beginning to receive some prescriptions from doctors. I hope the core practitioners here will have to comment on that, whether we are quite 100% correct. We still have problem of documentation, despite the fact that some are computerized in their services. I regret that I didn't bring a case of a project I supervised by a student of the West African Postgraduate College of Pharmacists in Lagos. This was done in Ikeja local government area, having only 50 pharmacies. A major result from that project was that we observed that documentation was generally poor. I think about 60% document their services in the community pharmacies, about 60%. And out of this number, a certain percent, I can't remember now, are electronic. Others are still manual. There is poor record, patient medication records, which is very, very important, and not there in most of the pharmacies. That means that patients come and receive their medications, and there is no continuity, there's no record. Each time they come, they are fresh. The pharmacy does not refer to previous records because such records do not exist. Our pharmacies still suffer from the fact that they don't have regular patients who come and they are attached to the pharmacist because the patients go from pharmacy to pharmacy, especially in search of where to get at better prices. So they have no special pharmacy they patronize. Always they compare prices and they choose where to go. One of the questions in the questionnaire was, would pharmacists want to be paid for extra services? We know that in our own case in Nigeria, no extended service is paid for, and I think it's like that in some countries. But when you dispense, when you counsel, when you help with health information and drug information services to the client, it is very good service. But we know the time invested in those services can be costly. especially when some patients may not even buy anything at the end of it. Therefore, should pharmacists be paid? Should he demand payment for these services? It is still controversial. Some believe that they deserve some payment. That means a patient that walks in and gets advice and counseling should be able to pay something and not just walk away with that. Of course, you cannot do it with a medical doctor in his practice because he has consumed his time and they have used his knowledge, and it is never free. Even though I have said there's improvement, we still believe that we are not where the number is still small. The PCN is represented here. In Lagos, I don't think we have more than a little more than 500 pharmacies. We tried to look into their records, and it was not very difficult. We had to sort it out to know which ones are in local government area, but not more than less than 600, which is very small compared with the need, the demand we have in Lagos, because it's a highly populated area. There are some areas that do not have community pharmacies. And what happens in these areas? Non-pharmacists take over and practice. They may practice as patent medicine dealers or practice as quacks. Nobody is happy with the situation because it doesn't give good impression to any pharmacist what is sold. But what can we do? Sometimes we blame the universities. There are about 14 of them that are today producing pharmacists. But they are not producing enough for our need. The number is small. The PCM will tell us something more exact, but I don't think we are having more than 15 pharmacists, 15,000 pharmacists actually in practice for a population of a country we put at not less than 140 million, is it? 140 million. So the number is small. The output from the universities is very small, despite the efforts they are making. We need to hasten because the demand is greater than the supply. I must say that the standard of pharmacy, the standard of education has improved remarkably. It is not like the days we were in the universities. We received such quality education that was adequate for the time. But today we know that things have really improved in the universities. Sometimes pharmacists ask themselves, with all that we have received, how is it used in our practice? But that should be the case. No one expects that you use all or make use of all you have learned. But the point is that the quality has improved. Many a time, it is not easy to identify these improvements in community practice. But I know that in the companies, the pharmaceutical companies appreciate the improvement in the education we have been receiving from the universities today. compared with what it was before. I think at this time I may have to allow my colleagues to make input since it's meant to be a general discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was a very, very great start. You know, but before we get back to the panelists, I want to introduce, actually to come to the podium is the PCN president, you know, Mr. Sorry, PCN, Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria president, Mr. Zubike Obo. Please come to the table. While he gets here, you know, I just have one other question based on all the things that Mr. Tway said. You know, in terms of the state of pharmacy practice, you know, it's very interesting. I mean, intriguing that it's evolved over the years. But how do you explain in Nigeria, you know, here in the United States, you know, people cannot go to the pharmacy. Here in the US, people cannot go to the pharmacy. A patient cannot just go to the pharmacy and purchase even narcotics, you know, without prescription. And also, the pharmacist is obliged to have proper documentation of that. In Nigeria, I remember even during the time, you know, people can get in there and literally buy anything. Is that still the case, or has it improved? Okay, registrar. Okay, yes, I also want to introduce, I called her name before, Dr. Teresa Palm, you know, she's here with us here, so please. So, okay, maybe the registrar may be able to answer that.
Thank you. On the issue of narcotics and on the issue of the narcotics and the purchase, as it relates to Nigeria, the situation is still not too good. Yes, we expect that you can only purchase narcotics with prescriptions, and the pharmacies supplying it, you keep records. As much as the pharmacies are trying to keep the records and to supply only with the prescriptions, like Pharmacist Atway said, the pharmacists hardly receive prescriptions. That means you have a situation where the prescription and the dispensing, everything ends within the doctor's setting and the hospitals. And as much as pharmacists want to do it right, they feel that comes to them to ask. Some still find it very easy to hide under the fact that prescriptions don't come, and when you come, they just give. That is not to say that it is allowed or it is acceptable. But then between the PCN and the PSN, I think every effort is still geared towards making us do it right. And I think it's a little bit better than what it was. Pharmacists are more, pharmacists tend to accept the need to do it right and the need to do it professionally now, unlike what it used to be. And every effort is also being put into the system to ensure that the prescriptions get to the pharmacies, so that the records, we can always use it to assess the record of narcotic sales. It is not only PCN. I think NAPPSA is also involved, and NAPPSA is also trying to monitor the distribution of narcotics in the system, as far as the record, their own record of narcotics in the system is concerned, to reconcile it with the sales and the record in the pharmacies. I think it's a little bit, it's getting better, and it could, although it could still be better. Thank you.
Then, maybe any other members of the table, you know, if you have any comment on that, you know, we'll get to the first question. On for the interest of those that just came in, you know, the first question was about, you know, how has pharmacy practice evolved over the past 2 decades in Nigeria? What are the challenges and opportunities? And Stephen Atway and the other panelists have giving some of their thoughts. So if anybody, particularly those that came in, if you have some other thoughts, that would be great. Maybe you can talk to maybe Azubiko, or since you are the currently practicing pharmacy in Nigeria.
Thank you, and just saying how grateful I am to be here. Pharmacy is evolving all over the world. I'm sure also that pharmacy is evolving in Nigeria. I want to associate myself with the statement that I had from the two speakers before I came in. We're also doing whatever is possible to ensure that we don't just have a Nigerian way of practicing pharmacy. It's a global profession. We are tying up with anybody we can. We're tying up with FIP. We're tying up with CPA. We're tying up with NAPPSA to ensure that there's no Nigerian way of practicing pharmacy. We are also challenging government to say, look, the status quo must not remain. We must move from where we are. And what I want to say here, I have the paper sometimes on Saturday, and what I'm going to say is that we have a government. From the pharmaceutical perspective, the Jonathan government is listening. In the sense that we've written, before now, written several memos to government, and nobody ever listens. What we've seen in the last few months is that when we write these memos, there's action, and they're talking to us. It gives hope that we can continue to push. We'll continue to push. We're pushing. For instance, there is a procurement act in Nigeria now, which says all procurement must go through the procurement department. There are procurement departments in every ministry or departments in government, from the national to the local government levels. And we have said there must be exceptions. Pharmaceuticals are not just goods or items for trade, and we say, look, there must be exceptions to this. And we wrote a memo to government to say, look, because what happened was that the CMDs, chief medical directors of hospitals, have capitalized on whatever came out of that memo to say, look, purchases of drugs, or storage of drugs has to go to the departments, the procurement departments. And we have written to say, no, we quoted instances in our, sections in our national drug policy, which says wherever drugs are involved, pharmacists must be the professional. And we got a letter from the president to say, look, we agree with you. And he directed these letters to all the CMDs to say, look, wherever drugs are involved, pharmacists must be on the table. And as I said, there are several other instances where we're not short of people who can write good memos, and we're capitalizing on the fact that this government is listening. We need also to empower pharmacists. The skills are not too sharp. We need to do more in giving skills. But you see, we also have internal problems within pharmacy in Nigeria. We're all here now speaking as pharmacists, but back home, there's a war waging inside pharmacy. Inside pharmacy, because the PCN, the registrar of PCN, who used to be here, is turned out to be somebody not supporting pharmacy in Nigeria. I don't know why. And Nigeria is still a place where, if you know the secretary to government, if you are familiar with him and you know him, you can walk to him and demand something against your profession. Those issues are not yet settled. We are battling there. I talk when I speak on Saturday. Those are the issues. We are not even going with one voice. Pharmacy is not with one voice. Not with the PCN. Not with the PCN. We have no problem with the people here, but the masquerade back home is trying to destroy pharmacy. That Alhaji A.T. Mora, we're in court with him, but it shouldn't all be problems. As I said, we're doing fine. We have several examples of what we're doing. We are working to ensure that we get, there's a certification for good pharmacy practice that we're trying to run with the WHO. We're trying to get pharmacists back on the table, empower them, skills and knowledge, so that they can better serve the public. There are also, we're talking with the NAPPSA, your group. We have we're talking about dispensing. We're working with one of you. We're looking at how we can get a dispensing software to ensure that we at least label products. And we have tremendous progress in that area. I'm sure before our conference in November, we should at least have 50 pilot projects on this, the labeling that we should do. I mean, the French, our neighbors, French countries are doing better than us, and with all the resources at our disposal. So it is not just all problems. I think I want to leave it here. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, I wanted to mention that about 3 of the panelists have some presentations to give. I think that will set the way for formal discussion. But before they get into that presentation, I want to ask Dr. Pam, what is the role of pharmacists in integrated healthcare system in the U.S., and how can the role of pharmacists in Nigeria be expanded to better cope with the challenge of modern healthcare delivery?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me here today, and I'm sorry I came late. It was interesting listening to some of the comments of pharmacists' role in Nigeria, but let's talk a little bit about here in U.S. What does the pharmacist do? I think if you read some of the articles or go to some of the institutions here in the United States, you'll be very impressed to really see what pharmacists do when you're talking about integrated pharmaceutical care. Some of you had the experience of coming to Atlanta when we had the first conference, and I think you also had the opportunity of going to some of the pharmacy, the hospitals in Atlanta. When you're talking about pharmacists' role in the integrated pharmaceutical care, then what you're actually seeing is a pharmacist who is part of the patient care activities. It's not unusual to see a pharmacist who is working hand in hand with a physician in the critical care unit, helping with patients who are very sick, helping give direction in terms of the right dose of medication, titration of the medications. Even when patients go into cardiac arrest, it's not unusual to see a pharmacist actually there with the physician helping to resuscitate the patient. I had the privilege also to work in a pharmacy in Atlanta as the emergency room pharmacist. And again, it's not unusual to see a pharmacist working with a trauma surgeon when a patient has been involved in a motor vehicle accident and they bring them to the emergency room, and the pharmacist is there with the physician, helping resuscitate this patient, doing everything. That is what the pharmacist's role is in the integrated pharmaceutical care. And that's why, in order to prepare a pharmacist to do that role, you have to look at the competency. You have to look at the type of education. So that's why pharmacists here in the United States are doing not only the 4-year program in the school, they're beginning to do residencies. Like I directed PGY1 pharmacy residency program in my institution. So pharmacists are going that direction. They finish their 4-year, they're doing their residency, and then it's also, they're moving it to the next level, specializing in different pharmacy, role. My background is critical care and nutrition support. What does nutrition support do? What do I, as a pharmacist, do with that expertise, with that kind of thing? Automatically, my institution, when patients come in and they cannot eat the normal way, for whatever reason, maybe they have short bowel syndrome, maybe they have acute pancreatitis, whatever reason, clinical reason that does not allow them to eat, I'm the one that I'm automatically consulted. I'm a pharmacist, automatically consulted to take care of these patients. I work with the dietitian. They calculate what protein needs, caloric needs the patient needs, and I take care of the patient in terms of writing the orders, doing electrolyte management, working with nurses, working with physicians, talking to the patient's family, and ensuring on a day-to-day basis that this patient is well taken care of. That's a pharmacist. I'm a pharmacist. And that is the role of a pharmacist in integrated healthcare system. Where should that be? What do I hope that will happen? That's what we're hoping can translate, to other areas of the country, especially my country, Nigeria. That pharmacists in Nigeria practice on this level. You know, I'll just say one last comment before I move on. A couple of years back when I went to Nigeria, my mom was sick, and I happened to be with her in the hospital. Naturally, I want to be involved in what's going on with my mom. The physicians, when they made rounds, they were very surprised that I was a pharmacist, the kind of questions I was asking them. For example, why is my mom on this medication? What's the infection site? What's the culture? I mean, the kind of questions I was asking them, they were surprised that as a pharmacist, I'm able to ask them that kind of question. And I had to explain to them, yes, I'm a pharmacist. That is the way we practice in the United States. But where did I see my colleague pharmacists? They were in a dispensing room. They had no role whatsoever with what was going on in the clinical area. It's almost like they were somewhat intimidated, I would say, to ask physicians any kind of questions pertaining to what's going on with the patient. To me, when you're talking about pharmacists' role in the integrated healthcare system, the pharmacists need to be involved in what's going on. Thank you.
Very, very good. So we're going to start with the presentation, and the first presenter will be Dr. Ogobado.
Let me start off by saying that this is a short presentation from the National Universities Commission, co-authored with the Executive Secretary of the NUC and myself. Though the topic is State of Pharmacy Practice and Pharmacy Education in Nigeria, we're going to restrict ourselves to the education sector and the pharmacy education from the regulatory perspectives, as the NUC is a regulator of university education in Nigeria. It's well known that a pharmacy professional has to be properly educated and trained to acquire the multiple competencies required for successful practice. The health policy of the federal government of Nigeria duly recognizes the key role that a pharmacy practitioner should play.
Sorry, can you hear him from the back there? Can you hear him?
Okay, so
Okay, please, speak.
Okay, I'll speak that. Oh, we can hear now? Yeah, thank you. I say it's well known that a pharmacy professional has to be properly educated and trained to acquire the multiple competencies required for successful practice. The health policy of the federal government of Nigeria duly recognizes the key role that the pharmacy professional should play in the healthcare team. It is the desire of government to ensure that the window dispensing practice gives way to a pharmacist pretend to contact practice, even at state and local government levels, in order to promote, among other things, the rational use of medicines by the citizenry. The government has always been interested in ensuring that the graduates of pharmacy receive education that can enable them effectively practice in view of the responsibility of the federal government to the evolving health needs of Nigeria. I'll run through the slide when we have the slide, the computer properly linked to the multimedia. There are 15 universities approved to run the pharmacy degree program in Nigeria. The list of the university includes 11 federal universities, federal government-owned universities, 3 state universities, and 1 private university. You see the list, I'll run through the list when it comes up. There are a few other, we have other universities, among them private universities, that have applied to the NUC for recognition of their programs. They've started, but they've not been bold enough to be able to come up that they want us to come and visit them. By 2008, the student enrollment in all the approved schools stands at about 5,654. I know the figure has changed now, because even in that figure, some universities were missed out. The curriculum of the pharmacy program in Nigeria used to be exclusively determined in those days, some 20, 30 years ago. It used to be exclusively determined by the university offering the course in consultation with the professional regulatory agency, that is at that time the Pharmacy Board of Nigeria, which now is Pharmacists Council of Nigeria. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, those are the list of the universities which are approved to run pharmacy program in Nigeria by the NUC. It may not be exactly the same with that of the PCM. We're going to try to ensure that that's what happens. Sorry, okay. Yeah, that's the complete list of the universities that are approved. So if you have anybody attending another university in Nigeria that is saying it's running pharmacy program, no, that is not true. Now, I'm saying that in the past, before the advent of the NUC, the curriculum was determined exclusively between the universities and the regulatory agency at that time. But the federal government set up the NUC first as an administrative unit in the Cabinet Office in 1962, but later, by law, it was given wider powers, and it has as its vision, stated there, to be a dynamic regulatory agency, acting as a catalyst, positive change and innovation in the Nigerian university system to deliver quality education in Nigeria. And the mission is specifically stated also there. I think you can look at that. We find that the word quality recurs all the time because the federal government is always interested in ensuring that quality education is what is given out both at the primary, secondary, and tertiary level of education in Nigeria. Now, I also have the mandates of the NUC, which is briefly stated, to approve courses, to determine and maintain academic standards, to monitor the universities, to accredit university programs, and provide guidelines for processing of application of new universities, private universities in Nigeria. And we're adding on to that very soon institutional accreditation of all universities in Nigeria. That's as it goes. I think stable and crisis-free university system. As you're aware, there are a lot of crisis in the university system, mostly because of problems of lack of facilities and the kind of remuneration being paid to university teachers. That is being corrected now. So the NUC works with the university system and federal government to ensure that we have.
Is it okay to ask question now, or just you want to ask question at the end of the presentation? Because the area about the crisis,
in the Nigerian university system.
I think it's a very troubling situation, and it's been going on there for forever. I mean, our children, they are suffering, tremendously, and they're not, at the end of the day, it does not help them, So what as at now, I don't really know whether there's any constructive effort being done by not only by the NUC, by the federal government to be able to help to curb that.
Well, one of the problems we found out is that when you absolutely are not responsible, when there's no cost sharing in any system that you run, then people are bound to take it for granted and will not care. And we are addressing the issue of cost sharing very seriously, and soon, probably at all university level, at all universities, whether federal, state, state, they pay fees now, but the federal government universities, the universities are not allowed to charge fees. But when you start charging fees, when there's cost sharing, then people are going to be interested, the parents and the students are going to be interested in ensuring that they come to the university and do what they're supposed to do and leave at the right time. But remember, because the lackadaisical attitude by the university authorities themselves, because they feel that nothing will happen. You just all you need to do is just wait for some time and that's it. The crisis will die down. But most of the crises are usually based on the fact that facilities are not provided because government could not properly fund the universities to the extent that they should be funded, and because nobody else is contributing towards funding the university. The system, the general system was expecting the university administrators to go, or management to go around looking for funds to run the university, to subsidize what the government has provided. Invariably, sometimes government is only able to provide the amount necessary to just pay the staff salaries, and even may not be enough to even pay some allowances that staff are supposed to earn. And so this creates a crisis. But if the universities are allowed to charge fees, reasonable fees, moderated by the AUC, you find that all these crises will stop, because in the private universities, you don't have such crises because people pay a lot and they want to ensure that they get value for their money. So I think that's one of the problems that we found is happening. And I hope that you'll be able to address that. Yes?
Okay.
I'd like to add and second to what my colleague here has said. And I'm saying it from the standpoint of an individual whose early education was in the Nigerian academic system, and I since moved on almost 27 years ago. I left Nigeria, and I've been in educational systems in Britain. I studied in Britain for my PhD. I did a postdoc in Canada. I did another postdoc here in the US. I started my faculty career here in the US, and I've been here since then. And I can tell you, having been in the private institution, and also in the last two have been public institutions, including the one I'm in today, I can reflect back and I remember vividly when the then head of state, Obasanjo, general in the army then, came to University of Ibadan. I was a student then, when he came and declared that, education would be tuition free at the university level. I can't remember, probably in the 70s, in the late 70s. Do you know, when I reflect now as an educator in the US system, and with my years of experience here, that was the death of the Nigerian educational system. And it's so sad, because if you look at what happens in the Western world, be it Britain is suffering too, because the British system is, Nigeria mirrored the British system, which I can tell you now, as far as funding of education and the quality of education can lead to catastrophe. Britain is suffering, and Canada is in between. Canada is lucky that they're leaning more towards the US. They retain some elements of the British system, but they are largely leaning towards the US. In this country, funding of education, I can now talk as somebody who is part of the educational system here for years, is largely, even if it's a state institution, there are no federal universities in the US, okay? The closest to a federal university in the US is Howard University, which the university is funded by a line item from the federal budget. That's the closest. Every other university is either private or state-owned. Even when it's state-owned, like the ones I'm in today, it is not really owned by the state, because the level of support that the universities receive from the state governments have been dwindling over the years. I can tell you now, if they get 30% of their budget from the state government, they are lucky. So how does the universities operate? How are we funded? So that will help this discussion. We are funded largely by tuition and fees, followed very closely by alumni support. Donations that come to the universities from their alumni largely and friends, coupled with some funding from research for those universities that are research intensive, and then the paltry sum that less than 30% that will come from the state governments is what runs the university. But the bulk, I would say 60% of the funds that we receive come from tuition and fees. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot value what is free until we pay for it, it does not make any sense to us. So the sooner the federal government of Nigeria backs off from trying to run the universities, let the universities operate like any other university in the world that is successful, the issue of the strikes and what you have will not stop. So I'm echoing what you're saying.
Yes.
Thank you.
And also, before you continue to Dr. Gubin, I just want to add maybe another information to what Dr. Sonia has said. You know, I think from my own looking at it from 1,000 feet, you know, I think one of the problems too I see it's very corruption. You know, I think the system is very, very corrupt, and there's a lack of discipline on the part of lack of discipline and loss of integrity. You know, on the part of the students and faculty. You know, right now, I mean, during my time, you know, there was nothing like having calls in the university. But right now, some of the schools, you have lots of calls. You know, and also, this is a true story. It happened. It's to a relative of mine. This young man, very, very, very bright. You know, he's in medical school. Got an ability to medical school. So when they were trying to do I think he did the second MBA, the exam, they were asked to pay. The faculty, the teachers asked them to pay $300 and something thousand naira. You know, if they want to pass the exam. The guy said he wasn't going to pay it. The father was very strong disciplinarian and said I wasn't going to pay anything. And the guy did not pay anything, and they failed him. They failed him. So how can a faculty be asked and demanding money from students to pass the exam? You know, that's a very big breakdown in the school. Because of that, how can the faculties, even after taking that money from the student, how can that faculty stand face the students and tell the students what they are doing is wrong? So I think the problem we're seeing in our university system is transcends just funding. And I think there's a lot of things that need to be put right.
Thank you. I don't think you want to start debating that now, but I think let's move ahead. I'll finish. We can have more discussions. Yeah. I just suggest the goals of the NUC as far as the university system is concerned. Now, let me just pause that. Oh, so is that the power? Okay, I just pause it. Now, I was saying that the curriculum, the syllabus that's been run in the university, with the advent of the NUC, it now has to, because by law, it's now the authority of government which is to lay down minimum academic standards and to ensure that all the universities in Nigeria are able to attain the standard and measure how far they are attaining the standards. And it does it by a lot of things, going on accreditation exercises, visitation exercises to these universities. And when it does so in collaboration with the other federal government regulatory agency, that is the Pharmacists Council of Nigeria, which is charged in Nigeria with the control of pharmacy practice in all its aspects and ramifications. In fact, the curriculum, when it's to be reviewed, is at the initiative of the Pharmacists Council of Nigeria, of course by the Pharmaceutical Society, by some other stakeholders. Is the PCN that will make recommendation to NUC, and it's based on this that NUC will then relook at the curriculum, maybe during the general exercise, or even on the special case, look at the curriculum of pharmacy education in Nigeria. And whenever there's going to be a visitation to any university for accreditation purposes, usually the NUC will consult, will ask the PCN to send a representative for each panel that goes to any university, so as to ensure that the PCN is carried along in the regulation of pharmacy schools in Nigeria. Now, this is just to show the situation of student enrollment, staff complement, and also the state of accreditation of the programs of pharmacy in these 15 schools that are approved in Nigeria. As you can see, almost all first generation universities except University of Uyo, almost all the others have full accreditation status. But University of Uyo has a special problem its rural location, prevents it from having a lot of staff going there, qualified staff going there. They are making special efforts now to recruit more so that they can maintain their accreditation status. Otherwise, if they obtain a second interim accreditation, it leads to denied accreditation. And that means they will no longer admit to the program, and they will graduate all the students that they have there, and that program will have to stop in that university. We hope that that will not happen. For the state universities, they also, I said there are 3 state universities running, that are running pharmacy program in Ogun State University, at Shagamu, in Agowe. We have the Bayelsa State University, Bayelsa University running at the Niger Delta University. Sorry. Oh, there are 8 of them. Oh, I didn't go down. There are 15 of them which are listed there. So that side is too big for that particular page. So the Niger Delta University, which has just been given full accreditation. Olabisi Onabanjo also has full accreditation. The third state university is just being visited, Delta State, the Delta State University in Abraka. Its program is just it's on the 4th year, and we just visited that university recently. I actually happened to chairman the panel. We made a recommendation. I know the status they have, but I cannot say anything about it because it has to be approved by the NUC board before it's released to the public. I know their status. So also the case of the University of Port Harcourt, which is a federal university, that has also been recently visited, and having been the chairman of the panel, I also know what the status recommended is, but I cannot talk about it now. The other university, Igbenado University, is also was recently visited. We also know, but soon the status will be released. Once the management board approves, then the status of the publication will be made of all this for all universities that were visited, not just for pharmacy program, but for all the programs. So the last, I was just going to talk briefly about the issue of the curriculum that we use in pharmacy in Nigeria now, that we have. Well, before I get there, I'd say I want to just talk about the common causes of accreditation failure in universities in Nigeria. We have, number 1 is the acute staff shortage in many disciplines, not just in clinical pharmacy. I'll talk about clinical pharmacy at the moment, but in almost all disciplines. You'll be amazed that we now have fading away the faculty in pharmacology. We haven't got many staff in pharmacology in Nigerian universities. We haven't got in pharmacognosy, which is very important for area in Nigeria where you need to do a lot of pharmacochemical studies, medicine. We need, but you don't have many of such. Maybe many people are running away from there. And also, of course, clinical pharmacy is special one. But coupled with this is that we have large enrollment. When my colleague here on the table, Mr. Ifeanyi Atrey, was talking about the number being produced by university being low, the output being low, that we need to have more enrolled. We are having a problem. You can see the enrollment figures I showed there. A large enrollment with few staff will lead to low quality. So we cannot afford to have more now unless we have more staff, more quality faculty for the various programs, for the various disciplines. Or we have assistance from people who are qualified, who can offer assistance as pharmaceutical scientists to Nigerian universities from here under the LEADS program, which I mentioned last year. And then acute shortage of laboratory equipment, sometimes space and equipment are a problem in some universities. I will tell you that we've been able to address some of such in federal universities at the moment through what we call the Education Trust Fund, though not all have been addressed, but we find out because of the Education Trust Fund, which government has made available to try to rehabilitate universities in Nigeria, particularly the federal universities, which have gone into a state of dilapidation. The Education Task Fund, with the collaboration with NUC, provided some 5.5 billion for 6 universities last year, and 3.3 billion this year for another 6 universities in the country, and hopefully in another 2 or 3 years' time, we'll cover all the federal universities. Along with this, also there is going to be an increase in the amount available. There's some money released to all federal and all state universities annually by the Education Trust Fund in collaboration with the NUC. And that amount is going to go up because there's a new law placed before the National Assembly now to make a law that the Education Trust Fund will only be used for tertiary education, to support for tertiary education alone. That is only for universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. At the moment, the money that is available, which is quite an enormous amount, is being spread to cover not only tertiary education, but also primary and secondary education. And once this stop, more money will now be available to the tertiary education level, and more universities are going to be covered in the shortest time to be able to improve their facilities. So hopefully, and for pharmacy, we are not doing badly, because in the last ones that happened, the 5.5 billion for 6 universities, 2 universities two universities had pharmacy schools. Will make sure that at least they're going to have a new pharmacy building, furnished and equipped to what we can call a model pharmacy school in the next 1 year. 2 of them are already on it. So that's University of Maiduguri and University of Nigeria and Nsukka. Now, I'm sure some of you past UNA will know that you had makeshift bungalows for faculties, for offices, and whatever. That's going to go now. In faculty dedicated permanent site, faculty building is being put up now, or they're going to start building soon from the ETF fund. So the tune of about 600 million naira, something like that. Now, let me talk about the current situation about the curriculum that's being used. And the background was traced sometime the last time. I don't want to repeat that government realizing that there is now a changing rule for the pharmacists in the global world, and also Nigeria not excluded, has to take some steps to ensure that legal pharmacy is given its place in the education of students in the university system. So, with the recommendations being approved that you must have a clinical pharmacy department, you must have clinical pharmacy should take a very prominent role in the curriculum. A new benchmark academic standards, people call BMAS, has evolved. But in trying to draw up this BMAS, we're quite conscious of the fact that not all universities in Nigeria, 15 of them, may not be able to start the PharmD program. And so we had to have, in a composite form, we had a BMAS, both for the undergraduate, in the undergraduate level both for bachelor's degree program and for the PharmD program. The BMAS for the bachelor's of pharmacy program is a 5-year program. One like that for the PharmD is a 6-year program. And so that's what is before government now. I'll be details here. That's before government now. It's been before government maybe about almost 3 years now. So we submitted this, we made submission. Submission came from the PCN, and I happened to be the chairman at that time. We made submission so when I say we made, that's when I was PCN chairman. We made submission to NUC that we want a PharmD program. The current president of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria was a member of the board at that time, of Pharmacists Council at that time. We made this submission, and we thought that by the following year we'll have had an approval. But it has gone through a lot since then, and in fact, up till recently, we thought we had cleared the hurdle, when there was a quick invitation sent to the NGC Secretary to come and defend it was not just the pharmacy. We had pharmacy program, which had two components like this. We had the MBBS program, which was going to start, which was going to have its input, that is the minimum qualification to enter into the medical program will be a first degree. That was also one of the things that were defended, to be defended before the Federal Executive Council of Nigeria. And then there was also the issue of education, the teachers' education, which was going to be, we want to have another 1 year added so that they could qualify, so that any teacher who, if you say somebody has gotten a BSc education, will not only have gotten an education training, but also will have almost like a BSc chemistry and do a 1 year in pedagogy and what have you to become a good teacher. So that was the idea. Those were the three programs. There was a law which was withdrawn by the Council of Legal Education, which was to also make law a postgraduate program like medicine. So those programs were supposed to be defended before the FEC. Admission came from the minister. On the morning, I was someone that I would have to go with the NUC the ES to defend the pharmacy program. On the morning, I was there rushing, and then ES told me that I got the morning he had gotten a call from the minister that the memo was no longer to be presented. What happened today, we are still trying to find out, to sort out, and hopefully we'll have that memo presented. Since the memo was already before, it was going to be before the FEC, we hope that we will be able to get that, clear that hurdle very soon. It could be a political logjam somewhere, or it could be some, it may not have to do with pharmacy. We don't know yet, but we'll try to find out and try to scale that hurdle. Now, we know that once we get that approved, not all pharmacy schools will be able to start. Only those pharmacy schools for which we verify that can have the facility, can have the staff, that should be able to do that. But we're not just laying low on that. At the last conference of NAPPSA, we were trying to work out some arrangement or some kind of, we had a linkage through Dr. Adeye, to be able to link up with all the universities that offer a dual family, okay, I was just going to talk about the challenges we're going to face if we're going to run a family program. At the moment, we have inadequacy of qualified clinical pharmacy staff. I can say it's almost zero in many schools of pharmacy, because to have to be qualified to be able to offer, to be able to give the kind of training that we need, you will not only need your family, you need a PhD. And so we're trying to see, and then of course inadequacy of clinical pharmacy clerkship facilities. We know that some are developing, as Mr. Atwey said, that some pharmacies now who are really developing to model pharmacy that can be used for clinical pharmacy clerkship. The inadequacy of qualified clinical pharmacy preceptors. We also lack this in Nigeria. Number of them are around, but not enough to be able to cover the kind of population they're going to have in pharmacy schools. So what we have told universities that are willing to run pharmacy program, even as at this moment to run a Bachelor of Pharmacy program, is still having difficulties in getting full accreditation, is to embark on accredited staff development in all disciplines, drastic reduction in enrollment, contrary to what Mr. Atwey was asking for, rather than to reduce the student enrollment, and also provide for more laboratories and laboratory equipment to be able to run the program. Now, for the staff development in clinical pharmacy, we have said that the qualified staff must have PharmD and PhD. We are trying to work.
Can I interrupt you here? The first point you've noted there would be the demise of clinical pharmacy as far as PharmD is concerned in Nigeria. Let me talk to you now as a former dean of a college of pharmacy, University of Houston in this country. Number one will be a killer. Where will you find individuals with both PharmD and PhD? Let me tell you what we do here. We have trained PharmDs in the audience, I'm sure. Let me make it very clear. that those individuals that have PharmDs sitting in the room there were not trained by individuals with both PharmD and PhD. Okay? That is the demise. If you want that as a standard clinical pharmacy as we practice in the US today, as we train from educational standpoint in the US today, will not happen in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you very much. I will tell you what you want to do. I will tell you what you have to do, what we want to do. You see, what we want to do, what I said, we're going to have an aggressive staff development program. You could have asked me, what do we mean? Now, we said that we wanted somebody, we have a dual PharmD PhD program here in the US, right? If we can have our Nigerian staff employed in Nigerian university come here to do that program, well, wait a minute. You see, you're talking about going back or no? That's not. It's not when staff development was going to take place in the university system. When I entered the university service in 1969, that's 40-something years ago, over 40 years ago. The Obasanjo University, then University of Ife, decided to embark on an aggressive staff development program. It trained people in several disciplines all over the world. A good percentage of them came back. Some never came back. Now, even the good percentage of them who came back were the ones which are now all over the country. In many universities, trying for pharmacy, for instance. For pharmacy, let me give you an example. So we are not saying, we are not, at the moment, let me tell you, you see, aggressive staff development program has to be focused, has to address a problem. If we say we want to do it, we are not conscious of the fact that though they're going to be under bond, the MOU is going to state that they cannot practice where they are being trained. There's going to be a lot of things tied into it. We know that some of them will beat it, will still go away, but some percentage will come back. That percentage is what you need in each university to build the seed, to be able to now train more people. Because once you're able to train them, once you have that core of staff that you want, say 2 in every university that's running the pharmacy program. If we don't embark on it, we will never get there. If we embark on it and we're able to get some back, not all, we're not saying we're going to claim 100%. Let me finish.
What you say, because we know better. We in the US know better. And I need to explain to you.
Let me tell you, this is from life and from experience. I was dean of a college of pharmacy for 6 years in Houston, Texas, University of Houston. As I sat down here thinking, I'm still vehemently opposed to NUC insisting that clinician pharmacists should have PharmD and PhD. It is ridiculous. I sit down here and I think about me running a college of pharmacy. Do you know not one of my pharmacy practice faculty had a PharmD and PhD? Not one. They all were PharmD trained clinicians with residencies or fellowship training, and they are the ones training the PharmDs we have in the US. Nigeria, you must be out of your mind if you want to do the same thing as we do in the US to insist on them having a PhD. I can talk to anybody in the Nigerian system and tell them they are not started, they have not even started.
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's an opinion. It's an opinion.
Yeah. Dr. Kubana.
Why not let us know? It's not just the issue of PhD. You see, what I'm saying is that if you want to be we are not saying that we can't take PharmD with residency to train. We're not saying that we cannot do that. They can be in the university system. But what we are saying is that the university system in Nigeria, the federal government, not NUC, federal government has approved that the minimum qualification for you to be a lecturer. No, you can be classified in any other way to do what you are doing. But to be a lecturer, which will mean you can progress from lecturer to senior lecturer to become a professor, the minimum qualification you need is a PhD. So there's no need to be arguing about that. That's a federal government decision.
That is also ridiculous.
Yes.
Dr. Governor, just one second. I think this is very exciting in the sense that there are lots of questions, you generated lots of excitement in the crowd. But again, I just want to mention one thing. While we are looking at this, I think let's think about our country, our Nigeria. I think the underlying, let's not forget the underlying fact here. From his presentation, they have acute shortage of staff. That is the thing, you know. We can go ahead and argue, but I think our contribution should be how do we help to be able to bridge that gap. And one of the things I'm thinking that we can do, and I don't know whether they are looking into it, there are so many Nigerians here, you know, experienced in different fields. And some of them, I know, are working towards going home. You know, what efforts are being made to reach out to those people to see whether you can afford, you know, offer them either adjunct faculty position or faculty position. In the process, you might be able to solve some of the acute staff problem you have.
Yes, that's been done. Yes, this issue of PhD was a big controversy at the last conference. So there's no need starting it off again. Because it's not NUC decision, not my decision, it is a federal government decision. Okay. So if you are opposed to it, you write a memorandum, forward it to the federal government through the National Assembly, through the representative, and ask them to stop it.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, someone has it. Go ahead.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dr. Justina Obuokire, College of Medicine, 16 years, 2 years in Saudi Arabia, 3 years in Cincinnati, 12 years, 13th year at Xavier. I'd like to strongly back my colleague, respected colleague and dean, Sonny here. I'm sorry. Well, your portfolio as dean and your experience is what I'm backing up. I want to state that in none of those institutions do I have a clinical pharmacist who also has a PhD. I was also, when I finished my fellowship at Harvard in public health, you know, there's so much. What clinical pharmacists have to offer the world is a gold mine. We don't need a PhD to do that. Okay, that's precisely what I'm saying. I went to the University of Cincinnati, graduated cum laude. I needed the clinical arm because I wanted to touch patients, feel with them. I published the single study on self-monitoring of blood pressures that the American Society of Cardiology is now standing upon to demand self-monitoring of blood pressures and getting paid. That's the kind of clinical expertise we have in this room. We're not here to argue PhD, this, that, and the other. Dr. Ogumbona and myself, Ifeanyi Atueyi, Dora Akunyele, Agowa, we received the fellowship as far back as 1993 from the West African Pharmaceutical Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, even in Saudi Arabia, England, wherever I have practiced, you don't need that need. I have great ideas on how clinical pharmacists can move Nigeria forward, okay? And I want to be able to share that with you as these things develop. But please don't let us fossilize on PhDs and PharmDs, because it's not the issue. The issue is, what do you bring to the table? Look at what my sister here has said. I do HIV/AIDS. I have programs that have touched the world through my HIV/AIDS. Okay, there's so many things we can do. Let's not fossilize on that and have these, the government officials who cannot appreciate what we bring to the table. Clinical pharmacy will propel Nigeria forward. Let me tell you, if you look at the number of people who have strokes in Nigeria, and you start a clinical pharmacist that relates BMI, weight gain, and strokes, and high blood pressure prevention, in your pharmacy, let me tell you, you can get paid. You can propel Nigeria forward, and the public will see the difference. Thank you, and you have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, one more question, and then we can get back to the presentation, please. And also, I just want to also add that it's not so much of will I say going back and forth between family PhD. That's not really what the issue is. You know, the issue is about what will help our system. You know, that is to improve or at least jumpstart the clinical pharmacy practice in Nigeria. Given that yes, you don't need to have a PhD to do that. I agree 100%. However, you know, in this country, people have PharmD PhD programs. In some schools, it's targeted towards certain other things. But with regard to the clinical pharmacy practice, for you to be successful, I don't think you need a PhD. You know, and I agree with that. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, and I just want to appreciate being here this year because this is the first time I'm coming here, and this is really big. Sir, what I really have in mind is this. I was trained as a teacher back home. I came here and decided to go back into pharmacy school. I still have one of my daughters there in high school. I usually send my children to school to do high school in Nigeria because I still appreciate that culture. When I finished pharmacy school, the company I work with now, they paid me some money as a bonus and said, can you work for us for this number of years? I did that. What is holding me in this country is my school loan. If Nigeria will pay my school loan, I'm going. That's my consideration. If they pay my school loan, you will see me in Lagos tomorrow.
Why not be there?
And I know every I'll be there. I'm sure there are lots of people who want to do the same thing, but we pay so much here to get this education, and sometimes by the time you finish it, you are already retiring. So it's like you have nothing to go home with. But now, if somebody will give it to me, sir, I have friends, I still go to other universities, they call me to help out with one thing or the other. I have friends who will be ready to come, even if it's for a month of vacation, just to work with me. Pay my school loan, you will see me home.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
We just have to move forward, you know, just sort of. Please, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Okunaba?
Ogunbana,
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sure you are here as a government representative. So it is very important for you to hear us out and take the right message home.
Thank you.
Now, you talked about the federal government not bulging on the issue of PhD. Now, education must be dynamic. So you should not tell us that the government will not budge. We have to listen. Number two, you also said that Nigerians will have to come here and train. I also want to remind you that we have not forgotten what the Shagari administration did to most of us here in the early 80s in terms of not meeting their obligations. So we cannot be convinced that the government will pay when people come here. Number three, the economic situation has also changed. So when people here say that Nigerians will not go back, they know what they are talking about because it's not the same economic situation. Now, the final point I want to talk about, which is very related to clinical pharmacy as we discuss it now. Now, my father passed away about 10 days ago. I go to Nigeria very frequently, in fact, almost every 2 months now. I'm as a matter of fact setting up a wholesale business in Nigeria. Now, my father died of prostate cancer at a very advanced stage. The issue of the pen, it was not managed properly because access to opiate narcotics, such as morphine sulfate and fentanyl, it was not available. Now, I want to ask you if you know what the government policy is, because I wrote a letter to the Federal Minister of Health trying to find out what is the policy on the distribution and retail of morphine sulfate. I have not received an answer up to now. And I would like to know from you before I go back to California, if you know.
That's good. Very, very good. Please, just for us to be able to, time is moving. We want, we have 2 other presenters. Just make note of your questions, and then we're going to address those. So the next presenter is going to be, sorry?
No, that was just coming. It was just that slide was actually to talk about the
The next presenter is going to be Bolade Odutan, the acting registrar for pharmacy.
What I was trying to finish up with was that we started off looking at this issue of the dual program. It has nothing to do with those who are here, who want to come and assist and whatever. We are saying we are trying to develop a new core of staff. It's an ambition. We have a duty to say we want to have a quality clinical pharmacy education. It's not saying that those who, you see, the person we have sent here will not have been able to go through the kind of residency experience that the people who have this experience, who have had for 10 years, 15 years of that clinical experience will have. He's a fresh person whom we have just graduated, want to train as a staff, as a university staff. He knows that to become a university staff, he has to have his PhD. His other colleagues who are in pharmaceutical chemistry, in pharmaceuticals, and in pharmacology are going to acquire their PhDs. So if you say you should just go for clinical from B training and come back, because he knows that to move ahead in the Nigerian university system, your PhD is important. Why don't you give him an opportunity to have his PhD? I mean, I thought that to be clear that what I'm trying to do is not cast as passion of those of you who are qualified clinical pharmacists. What we are saying is that we are developing a new core of staff for our own environment, because our own curriculum has a lot of scientific base, and also now want to put clinical pharmacy on top of it. We're not saying that that's not the same here, but for the person who is going to be in clinical pharmacy to have the same kind of opportunity to move ahead and not be saying, I do have a PhD. That's what we are saying. Should we give him a wrong start, or should we give him a right start? That's the question. And so if we agree that we need that, we need to allow him to be able to develop, not like his other colleagues in the various disciplines. We need to give him a chance to have his PhD. And so if government can then say, if you can then get a grant, we know that if we have this dual program, this memorandum of understanding between some universities in the US for this dual program, we know that we can now source for the fund through the federal government to be able to assist these universities who are trying to send these people here with a bond, as I said, so that they can hopefully come back, so that they can also move ahead with their other colleagues and again be able to acquire more experience with linkages with those of you who are really qualified clinical pharmacists practicing now. That's what we're trying to develop. If you see from that perspective, that's why I gave you our own example. If by the time we were sent abroad, 1969, we were sent for just MSc because we are in pharmacy, and the other people who were in agric and did their PhD, and they came back to the same university system. By the time they become professor, we will not become professor, because they say you haven't got this, you haven't got that. So we are trying to give these people who are going to be in clinical pharmacy the same start like other people, other staff we are recruiting for the various disciplines in pharmacy. That is the idea. So I hope if you buy this idea, let us find out whether Houston can assist us to train these core people, whether other universities where we have Nigerians can assist us in writing a curriculum for us. Somebody has prepared a curriculum in one university, say it will last just 4 years. You want to know how much it will cost. So that the issue you are raising is already gone. When we now give scholarship for this kind of program and other programs now that have been run for scholarship, you now, if it's 10 million that's required for that student to train to the end of that program, that 10 million is allocated to him and given to the university and to train that particular staff until he finishes. That's what we're trying to do. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Let me just.
Sorry, just hold on.
I want to be constructive now, not destructive.
Yes, but let me
ask you a question. Let's finish this point. The point I want to ask is: are you expecting the family to be graduates of the Nigerian universities coming here for their PhD? That's my question.
The family of.
Are they going to obtain their family degrees in Nigeria and then come to the US or anywhere for the PhD to be clinical pharmacy staff?
No, we have no family in Nigeria at the moment. That's the problem. We are just starting off. It's only after the approval of the federal government that any university can start from D. Okay? So that's
okay.
So you're expecting to send these from B Farm to come in here and earn the PharmD and then continue through a PhD program and then go back? then I may remind you of what was said in this room earlier. If those individuals come to the US and actually earn a PharmD, which means from an ACPE accredited institution, those individuals will be eligible to take their licensure exams. And by the time they take their licensure exam and get the licenses, it will be very difficult for them to even continue the PhD program. I must caution. Thank you. From experience.
Thank you. I think this has raised lots of passion, which is very good. So please, anytime you're making any comment or asking questions, please try to be very, very brief so that we'll be able to manage the time more effectively. And also, just to wrap up that session before the presentation by the acting registrar, I want to find out too, just to comment that I think in my own understanding, for Dr. Governor is not, is really pushing about how to build up the staff. My understanding, it's not so much of talking about the clinical pharmacy practice in Nigeria. So, and again, I remember, when I had my first degree in Nigeria, the person that taught us pharmacology in clinical pharmacy, being Dr. Agowa, he was a PharmD, So even here, when I was a faculty at the university, we have in our clinical pharmacy program, you have people with PharmD, you have people with PhD, you have people with PharmD, PhD. So they still work toward the same goal. So just get whatever you can to be able to get the program going. And also another question is that, is the system, have they pulled together like a commission to be able to look into it, involving people that are here, practicing clinical pharmacists here, that will help you to design that program and see, even in terms of the qualification of the staff. Have you been able to contact any people, get some people, recruit some people from US here to help in designing that program? Anyway, it looks like a rhetorical question.
I never asked you to answer that, no?
No, okay. Okay, having said that, okay, let's move to the next presenter, the acting registrar for PCN, please.
Okay. Thank you. I hope my presentation won't generate as much heat as that of the AUC. I would just want to give like a milestone of pharmacy practice and what we have now. But before then, let me say that we have on our record 12 schools recognized by Pharmacists Council for the training of pharmacists. The remaining 3, well, they can be training pharmacy students, but in the context of pharmacists, they are not recognized. So they are still going through the accreditation process. For instance, we don't have record of Delta State University training pharmacists yet. They will get to the 6th year before we are informed. The same thing with the University of Port Harcourt. Ibinedi also has students on 500 level B, and that's the 6th year. And up to now, they've not been able to scale the accreditation procedures. So on our own record, we have 12. The first speaker, Mr. Toyi, said something about the low turnout of pharmacy students. And I want to say that what we have per year now is a little less than 600 students per year. And if you look at the record of NUC, what they have as facilities and whatever cannot, we are even trying, what we are doing now at PCN is to even tell you the number of students you can enroll, looking into the staff strength and the facilities on ground. And most of them have on ground now 3 times what we are giving them as a standard. So to now say increase it, except if we are sure they can increase the capacity of what they have. So that's just to put that as whatever. But we have, like he also said, that we have skewed distribution of pharmacies. Most of the pharmacies we have that are in community practice in Nigeria are in the urban areas, and 70% of them are in Lagos. Out of the 70% of them are in Lagos. So we have over 1,000 premises in Lagos out of almost 1,800 premises that is registered. Well, if I say registered, what I mean is what we have on our list as having renewed their registration for the year. And because of that and the need to ensure that people in the rural areas have a minimum exposure or whatever to drugs, we allow what we call the patent and proprietary medicine vendors license holders. Yes, we gave them a list of what they're supposed to sell, but trust our people, somehow, somewhere, they still smuggle in some of the other things. And by the day they get to fine-tune their systems, when they know the inspectors will come around, the inspectors will never find the drugs. But those who know them know that they sell those things. But gradually, most of them are getting tired because of the persistence of the inspectors on them. And unfortunately, we have over 50,000 premises for patent medicine license holders, as against less than 2,000 of pharmacies. And the issue is the pharmacists will tell you they don't want to go to some areas. Well, they have their children, they have their families, and except government can do this and do that and bring all those facilities to the rural areas, they won't move. So that's the problem we have about the practice. So on the issue of the training, I just want AUC to know that the issue of clinical pharmacy, AUC approved the 5-year program in 1989. And in 1990, there was a directive by AUC for the introduction of clinical pharmacy program in Nigerian universities. And if 20 years after, we're still where we are, I wonder what we're talking about, and I wonder where we hope to be with these new systems. But, well, I think with more deliberations and discussions, we'll get something done. So we also have what we call the School of Health Technologies, because in most cases, the real pharmacy practice started from the hospitals. And what we have in our hospitals now is a replica of Nigerian system, so to say, because you have a hospital, 400-bedded hospital, with less than 10 pharmacists. And you know, all the doctors from different disciplines, so many consultants, they will all end up at the pharmacy. And you want these 8 pharmacists or 10 pharmacists to attend to them. So it became a problem, and because of that, the idea of pharmacy technicians came up. So to say, by Pharmacists Council, or be regulated by Pharmacists Council, saying that Pharmacists Council is for pharmacists, it does not involve pharmacy technicians, and that except we are ready to change our name so that they will be seen to belong. So that's the stage we are now with the pharmacy technician. However, we're still training them. They are still sitting for Pharmacists Council's exam, but then when after graduating from the school, they now don't want to be regulated by Pharmacists Council. They now want their own board, and unfortunately, what we have is such that those who, there was a time, some of them were trained to become, I don't know what that means, pharmacy technologists, and those are now the ones drawing up the curriculum for the training of pharmacy technicians and all sorts of programs. And we will have situations where if you say all pharmacy technicians will show their licensure or whatever, they will bring a court case saying we are in court and nobody can control them, they are whatever. So we have all these problems around there, but then we are not resting, we are hopeful. Somehow, somewhere, we will get something done. Some of them, when it gets to promotion time and the management is saying bring your certificate before you are recognized for promotion, they will run back and start asking for permit and all that stuff. But we'll try to sort it out somehow. Now, like I said, we have 20 of such schools. And because we don't want so many of them, we try to limit their training, so to say. Initially, we have, each school is allowed to train only 30 students in 3 years. But because of the problems of not having enough manpower capacity in the hospitals, it was increased. Although when it was to be increased, there was a lot of heat on why you have to increase the capacity of those who are taking you to court, why you have to increase the number, you are strengthening them to, you are empowering them to do whatever it is. But yes, they're taking us to court, but we also have to consider the patient that they have to attend to. And one other issue is that some state governments, why we had to do that was because we realized that Nigeria is a peculiar country. The state government will, you know, so many things we do as empowerment. They will just open the school, put them there, and if there's any problem, they'll tell you we are training them for our use. So they will train them and use them in their state. And we now thought of it that if you allow such things to happen, if they say they are training them from their state, they are under bond or whatever, and suddenly you find them in another state, how do you ensure that what you have found in another state is properly trained to handle whatever is doing in another state? So looking at the argument in both sides, we just had to increase it. So now I think they have 45 within 3 years. That means a maximum of 15 students per year for each school. And we want to believe that at the same time we are trying to encourage some of them now, although very few, after graduating from the School of Health Tech and now realizing that they cannot be practicing as pharmacists, because the aim of all of them is they also want to be pharmacists. And that they even went as far as saying that if pharmacists are licensed to operate pharmacies, it should be their sole right to operate patent medicine shops, so that you not be for just anybody. And the target or the interest in going to the School of Health Tech is not because they want to practice, as stated, that it should be under the supervision of a pharmacist. All their interest is to graduate and be open to have a patent medicine vendor's license. So some of them now seeing the difficulty in doing that are thinking of, especially the young ones, because you will see the condition for entry is the same as entering into the university. Somebody with 5 credit passes and things like that going into School of Health Tech, maybe because there was no admission, and seeing that as a shortcut, now realizing that the short course is the longest route, they will now come back to the pharmacy to now want to go into pharmacy. And one of the other conditions they are trying to give is that we should make it easier for them to go into the university. But we're saying, well, entering the university is not Pharmacists Council's business. It is NUC. And NUC and JAM has a standard. You must pass JAM. So we don't come into making it easy for you, except if with all the strength they have, they can go through AUC to say, if you do School of Health Tech, you should be exempted from whatever, to do whatever it is. Now coming on to the issue of practice areas. Well, we have so many practice areas recognized in Nigeria: hospital, community pharmacy, manufacturing, the industrialists, and a lot of them now, we have the marketing and all that. But I think the most prominent that people tend to see easily, that we are all talking about here, is a community pharmacy. And we're trying to also encourage them too, like Madam said, to get a lot of things. I remember at the last FIP conference, it was like community pharmacies took the main stage because they had so many papers to their advantage, and there was a particular one that was really very exciting, and it has to do with the community practice in Portugal. And it really geared people towards what can we do to replicate this in Nigeria. A situation, but you know, the community pharmacists people too, thank God my president is a community practice, they have come to appreciate the fact that it is not everything you start that will be paid for. Let us start and let people appreciate our service, let people fight for it, let people tell government that we need this thing, and tell the doctors. But like we have rightly appreciated, when these doctors, yes, when they are together as a group, they come with common front to say, no, who is a pharmacist? But individually, they will quietly come to you and ask for your advice on some issues. Some of them, we have some hospitals now in Nigeria where the doctors although most of them now see it as an abnormal situation where pharmacists to go with them on rounds, but some doctors still will not go on rounds without the pharmacist there. They must have the pharmacist there. And in fact, there was a particular scenario that the doctor will tell the medical student, please don't talk. I don't want your opinion because you don't know, especially when the pharmacists are there. And some of them are becoming more acceptable to pharmacists being with them. And what I have tried, or we at the PCN try to make people understand is, we have to show that we know. We as pharmacists must also be ready to show that we know. And we must be ready to tell people that we know more than 2 tablets 3 times daily. And that is what everybody is trying to do now. Let us start something. It may not be appreciated immediately, but after some time, people will come to appreciate it, and we ask for it, and we'll ask more of it. So that is the state we are now, as far as community practice pharmacy is concerned. At the hospital level too, we're trying to encourage the hospital pharmacists, but the problem we have is that, I don't want to call it problem, it's the fact that, most of us that had been there for so long try to discourage the young ones by saying, oh, what can you do? They won't listen to you. I have been to here for almost so many years. And that is not because they believe the pharmacists don't know, but because it's the challenge to them as the head of the place. If the young ones are now the ones coming up and trying to put some things in place, and they will now see it as being as insubordination, trying to take over the duty of the head and things like that. But gradually, well, the young shall grow, but definitely we don't pray that the old ones will die. So gradually they are coming to appreciate that the old ones are flourishing, and they are now giving more rooms for the young ones to show their expertise. And because with that now there's more dynamism in hospital practice, and we have some of our hospitals now where we have not really specializations like that, but that you have a pharmacist that when you have anything to ask of about particular issues, you know who to speak with. I think that is as far as pharmacy practice is concerned. But on the final note, let me say that we all know the problem. We all know the problems we have, and we have our own internal problem, like the president said, and we have more external problems than internal. And I want to believe that there's still more to be done in order to keep pace with the practice in contemporary age, especially to meet the need of the patient. I want to sincerely acknowledge the gaps and appeal to us all to address them through a concerted effort. Those who want their loans to be paid so that they can come and add value to our system. NUC is here, and we take it back home, and we see what we can do to assist that. Thank you very much.
Very good. Very good. I would like to have the last presenter, Dr. Cyril Osifo present, and then we can then have ample time to deliberate on some of these points, because I had lots of questions myself. So, Dr. Osifo.
Thank you very much. And like I quickly said, when you are coming to Nigeria, thinking of coming to Nigeria, think of Benin. We have enough room to accommodate. No, don't worry. I will just paint 2 scenarios, then I would briefly talk about the 2 aspects. I will end up with the pharmacy education, which is my primary domain. I remember 1984, after I graduated, my teacher is sitting very close to me. He's flourishing, as you can see. After the internship, I went to do my youth service in Bauchi. The first 1 month, after the normal orientation program, somehow myself and 1 young medical doctor, we prayed that we should be sent to the same posting. Very unusual, we didn't lobby, and we were sent to Bauchi town, the military cantonment. He had a beetle car, so we drove joyfully and arrived at our destination, registered our presence, and the first thing greeted me. We met a medical doctor there, and there was this young man who had high blood pressure, and the doctor we met there said, oh, he took his high blood pressure and it was pretty high, but he wants to be very sure because the value he's having is very, very abnormal. He doesn't know why this man is still standing. My colleague medical doctor took the blood pressure and said, oh my God, it's also very, very high. Please let this man lie down now, right now. And they turned to me, can you take the blood pressure? I looked here and there. Don't ask me what I did. I said, it was also very high. My training in Ife never prepared me for what I encountered in practice. I took the step there and then to educate myself, to learn, because pharmacy is a continuous learning process. And I had to ask how I would take blood pressure. I learned during the camp how to give injections because the nurses were not there. The pharmacists and the medical doctors had to do that. We were living together. We even had to treat a patient, a acute copper, a lady who had a snake bite, because we learned in Bauchi over 30% of the cases every day are from snake bite. Were things we had to learn on ground. And as we did that, the second day we went on ward round, which was also not very normal for me as a pharmacist. But fortunately, I had gone through the pharmacy store and I found Flagyl infusion. And after we went on ward round, we found a patient who had been sick. They have given so many drugs. And for one reason or the other, she was not improving. I immediately came in as a pharmacist because as a custodian of drug, I found that the dose that was being administered was inappropriate. I corrected that. Then I immediately added, I have never seen Flagyl infusion, but I have done a lot of work with metronidazole. You can trust me as an academician. I immediately said, look, we have to use Flagyl infusion 8 hourly for at least 24 hours, better 48 hours, and we can continue with ampiclos, and let us see what will happen. They did that for 24 hours, and the next day the patient stood up, and the two doctors came to me, pharmacist, we are so happy that you are around. But I was learning on the job. That's why I said pharmacists must be prepared to learn. Incidentally, I didn't have the opportunity of doing that because there were only 3 pharmacies in Bauchi that time. But the call of academia, from what I got from Professor Gubona, couldn't make me to stay in practice. I have to return back to academics. I had to take up a scholarship that was put for me for a master's program in England, so I couldn't continue in that. But that sowed the seed of what I think pharmaceutical care is and what it means to work with people in the healthcare system. I want to quickly say that strong leadership is essential in ensuring that our dedicated effort through the training obtained in the university should produce fruitful results. The leadership, however, is essential at federal, state, and local government level, and as well as the civil society. In fact, I'm more concerned about what happens in my local government and state level or federal level, because I know the local government chairman, I can ask him to do a few things. I want to quickly say the health set of problems which we have. There's changing social and technological, economic and political environment. This affects our practice, and pharmacists must be political. Wherever I have the opportunity, I have a cousin who is trying to be a senator. I'm very much in his campaign team. I may not be in the forefront, but if he becomes a senator tomorrow, I will see how I can affect pharmacy practice, if not in my state, but in my local government. We must have there's poor intersectoral collaboration, lack of relevant, accurate, and reliable information, lack of active participation by private sector, and poor management capacity. We have inefficient health system and huge burden of diseases. For example, prevalence of chronic and infectious diseases, HIV, bird flu. I don't know how much equipped we are or trained to cope with some of these things, and lack of local health research facilities. And of course, we have inadequate financial resources due to constant drastic reduction in health budget. There's also low community involvement and participation. You may bring all the drugs, you may bring all the money, but if the local community is not well informed, they will not accept whatever you are presenting to them. And there's inequity in access to health services. What you and I may afford, some person, the average Nigerian may not be able to afford that. There's non-adherence of patients to drugs due to poor, low per capita income and high unemployment. Somebody who has not been able to pay his rent, you want to tell him to buy some drugs? It definitely will not. They will go and use Agbo at home. Internal and external professional competing factors. Some of us, we've rarely ventilated here. Brain drain. That's why we're trying to attract many people, especially that my young lady to Benin. We also have an attractive salary structure, which is improving. Career progression, ineffective implementation of rules, and division of labor. To overcome this mirage of problems for effective healthcare services, a change of attitude of health workers and genuine commitment of government to national health policy, I would say is very, very important. And why I rest on what I call my main domain, the pharmacy education, I want to say that my former Deputy Vice Chancellor is very quiet and assuming he will not talk, but you will hear him talking about from trash to treasure and a couple of things later. When he became Dean, he saw the need for a new faculty building in Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Benin. For those of us who graduated here, we realized that, I'm sure Professor Guna will also agree with me when you came on accreditation, that place was supposed to be a temporary site, but it has housed Faculty of Pharmacy to date. But he took the bold step by making sure that the management was well informed. But fortunately, when I took over as Dean about 4 years ago, I continued with the fight with him solidly behind me. And I must confess that 2 years ago, we started the first phase of the administrative block of the pharmacy building. Martin registrars here would attest to the fact that when they came for accreditation, the building has already reached roofing stage. And I have been assured that before the end of the year, the building will be ready. What we are saying in fact is that we should be aggressive so that when we talk about increasing pharmacy admission, increasing or producing pharmacy, the infrastructure must also improve. While fighting, so to say, quote unquote, the management to get certain things done, you may have to sacrifice some personal gains. I don't think there's anything I need to gain in pharmacy because I'm already a professor. Thanks to Professor Guna for the things that he taught us. It's important that we do everything for pharmacy. What I call personal losses might be maybe when you want to travel somewhere, like maybe you ask the university to give you a ticket and you tell you no, you opposed us when you were looking for your building. But those are personal sacrifices which I think are very important that we should do so that we could get what we want. The pharmacy education in Nigeria has gradually started refocusing the training of pharmacy professionals on patients rather than pharmaceuticals as sole element of practice. And like the acting registrar said, I know in some of the hospitals we do our clerkship, they don't go on ward round without pharmacists. And in fact, in UBTH, I must confess that the pharmacists there in gynecology, obstetrics and gynecology, they always make sure that they go with pharmacists, and in medicine. But you still have some departments that are still people of the old profession, old stock. They don't see anything good, but I'm sure they will change with time. I can say that with joy because the present CMD, who was recently kidnapped and released, the Vice Chancellor asked me to go and visit him to represent the university. Well, I don't know why he did that. Maybe he did that because we were classmates in higher school. But that notwithstanding, the truth is that we have good rapport and we have respect for one another. I could have read medicine if I wanted to, but I think I chose to read pharmacy. I read pharmacy and I'm proud to be a pharmacist and I'll remain a pharmacist. However, pharmacy education still needs to change to meet future needs. There should be a stronger commitment to the education of future pharmacy professionals from the profession itself, applying secure linkages between pharmacy education, pharmaceutical practice, and impact on health indices. The education curriculum should increasingly set high standards of education and practice, such agreed upon and widely shared standards, but taking into account cultural, geographical, political, and economic differences. I'm sure that was what Professor Goldman was trying to ventilate out, talking about the PhD PharmD. Who I agree perfectly well with you and with my colleagues. I think he was talking about the individual that have to be in academics in Nigeria may be totally out of place when there is promotion, and probably he's not promoted because he doesn't have a PhD. I think that's just what he was trying to emphasize. That's why I said we have to take into account the geographical, political and even economic differences. Equally, the pharmacy education policy must draw on our collective resources towards assuring the utilization of pharmaceutical human resources for human development. The training must ensure that they raise awareness among pharmacists on their roles in public health and patient safety. The inculcation of professional belief, trust, and respect for pharmacists and their responsibilities as custodians of medicine is therefore an obligation. Pharmacy education must produce professionals and standards of practice that are deserving of such public trust and respect for shaping and improving Nigerian healthcare system. And finally, we must bridge the gap. There is this disconnect between what we are taught and what we experience in practice. And therefore, when curriculum are being drawn up, it's important that the stakeholders, including those that utilize our products for the university, are put into perspective so that they will contribute their own quota. And finally, I said finally, well in Nigeria we say finally. 1992, after my PhD program in Germany, I had a job in Chicago, but I chose to return home, principally because of the training I got in Ife. Even though you are here and you don't want to return home, you can visit home. You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a thought-provoking presentation. Now, I think we have enough time to answer questions. I'll start by asking the first question. I want to ask this question to the acting registrar, PCN. How can we achieve synergy between pharmacy practice in Nigeria and United States, including reciprocity? Because this has been something that lots of people have been wondering about. We've talked about this for the past few years, but nothing really has come out of it.
Yeah, thank you. The issue of reciprocity is not limited to PCN. Reciprocity, as we understand it, is such that a country where there has a bilateral relationship or reciprocal registration extended to Nigerians is also allowed to register. That is as much as we know. But the truth of the matter is it goes beyond just saying it. There has to be a series of communication between the government. That's what I'm saying. It's beyond PCN. It's a government issue. That there will be a letter from one government to the other to say we allow this, we allow that, and before it comes to PCN. And see if the condition is if you have reciprocal registration from that country, you can be registered. The moment the letters are exchanged and it gets to PCN, we then have to register the person. And I think that is within the limit of the information available to us here.
Thank you. And then the next question is to Mr. Sorry? Okay, you want to add something? Go ahead, sure.
Please. And this reciprocity, I'm wondering whether that is the right word to use, reciprocity. I don't see US easily accepting that if you graduate in pharmacy and you are registered by the council in Nigeria and you come over here, you can practice. It is not very easy. It is easier for Nigeria to accept our people who have studied here and are registered here to come home and get